Hello, in this short video I want to look at what was included in the 040 release of the Cake.VsCode.Recipe package on NuGet.org. So within this release, if we look at the release notes, what we'll see is that there was a breaking change within this release. Now, I don't like doing breaking changes, simply put. It makes things difficult for myself as well as for anyone consuming this package. But in this scenario, we had to do it. So basically what we did was, in the last release, the 030 release, I updated a bunch of tools, a bunch of add-ins to take advantage of new functionality. Now, in doing so, I pulled in the latest version of Git Release Manager, and I'd forgotten, even though I'm one of the maintainers of the package, that as of November 1st, we're now into December, GitHub will no longer support username and password access to anything related to the GitHub API. So when I was updating the Cake extension for Visual Studio Code, and we actually were attempting to do a release, I was still using the username and password combination. And as a result, Git Release Manager no longer works. So I had to update the recipe package here to use a token, so a personal access token, rather than the username and password combination. Now, the reason that it's a breaking change is because Git Release Manager by default used an environment variable called GitHub_token for finding by default, Git Release Manager uses an environment variable, or used an environment variable called GitHub_token for finding what it needs to find. Now, the problem with that is that anyone using the GitHub CLI will see that there's potentially some crossover, because both of those tools, both Git Release Manager and the GitHub CLI, attempt to use that GitHub_token environment variable. So rather than potential cause conflicts between those two tools, what I've opted to do is I've opted to change the name of the environment variable that Cake.VsCode.Recipe uses. So I've changed that to be GitHub_PAT, as in personal access token. So if you are using Git Release Manager within the VS Code recipe package here, you will need to move away from using username and password combination in your environment variables, and you will need to start using a token instead. So the environment variable is going to be GitHub_PAT, unless you choose to override that, as you can do within the recipe package. So that's what shipped. That was the main focus of this release. Again, we found this as we were doing the release of the Cake extension for Visual Studio Code. And I was at the point that we were shipping it live on stream. We were shipping it, and it didn't work. And it didn't work for this reason. So I wanted to get this out the door so that I could do the release. But in that same time period, Pascal also made a change, which was to allow specifying the package ID for creating the chocolatey package within the recipe. So previously, the recipe package would have assumed that the title that you've associated with the project is what will be used to create the chocolatey package. Now, there's good reason that that doesn't work for the Cake extension for Visual Studio Code. So Pascal added in a build parameter into the recipe package, which allows you to control what that looks like. So basically, within your recipe.cake file, you would now specify a parameter called, let me find it, chocolatey packaging package ID. So you would specify that, and that would override the default, which is to use the title that you've associated with it. So that would just be in your recipe.cake file where you're bootstrapping the recipe. You would be able to control that. If it's not impacted you before, then you've been quite happily using the title as the package ID, and that's been working for you. But in the scenario of the Cake extension for Visual Studio Code, we do need to override that. So that's what was included in this release. Apologies about the breaking change. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can get me on Twitter at Gep13, or add a comment onto this YouTube video here, and I will do my best to respond. Thank you very much.